So welcome back, and this is the third and final part of mine and Tobias' discussion on Batman 1989. So enjoy. So now we're sort of entering the third act of the movie. Batman attacks Toxic Chemicals, drives through the long hallways, and drops a bomb quite close to the car also, and then everything blows up. And then the Joker shows up with a helicopter that is not entirely convincing, I guess.
No, it's kind of weird that in the Sam Ham script, it's remote controlled and it self-detonates the Batmobile.
Yeah.
But I think it has a lot more to do to set up the upcoming scene that he sent Batman out on a fool's errand because, I'm off to do my plan now.
Yeah.
Have fun trying to catch up.
Yeah.
It feels like he's more goading him at making fun of him for not being able to be there on time.
Yeah.
Which, he turns out has a bit of a backup plan to that.
Exactly.
A little Batwing.
Yeah, indeed. And also this is sort of maybe where the sort of the model work gets a bit prominent, because the helicopter looks, I don't know how big the model was, but as you said, this was Derek Meddings doing the models. I don't know, maybe it has something to do with the frame rate, because it looks tiny, it feels tiny. I think it's shot with too few frames. Maybe I should have gone more for a slow-mo effect, because it just looks a bit off.
Yeah, for people that don't know, when you shoot scale models, you tend to slow down to make it feel more epic in movement, to hide the fact that it's a small set. But if you miss to do that and do a little mistake, you kind of ruin the illusion.
And it's weird, since this is part of essentially the Bond crew doing this. But anyhow, we cut to Gotham again, and we have another Prince song, and then now the Joker shows up with his posse.
And to annoy the Prince fans once more, it doesn't fit either. No, it doesn't. It doesn't feel celebratory at all, and doesn't feel fitting for the Joker either. It's kind of the Jerry Bruckheimer needle drop this compilation soundtrack we've created, so you can buy with this voice.
And so he starts dumping the money, and as we said before, this was, I believe, supposed to be fake $1 bills, but one would think that people would have noticed, so maybe they cut it out, because if someone is dumping a couple of millions upon me, if I manage to grab a couple of the bills, my first reaction would probably be to look down to see if they were legit, and if I saw a big Joker face, I would probably riot or something. So I think it made sense that they kept it vague, or they placed it as its actual money, like $100 bills or something.
Might be the color grading on the master they use for the Blu-ray, but watching it kind of realized those bills looks a bit pink.
Ah, interesting.
So I think it might be a slight error in the remaster, but they do look a bit fake.
Yeah, you don't really get big. I can only think of one close-up when the Joker launches the gas. There is a image of one guy falling to the ground and holding his face with the bills. I don't know, maybe you can see it there or something. That's the only shot I can think of where you see the bills up close. But anyhow, Vicky is there and Knox as well, and then of course we introduced to the Batwing.
Kind of an epic scene. As you pointed out, in this part of the movie, the model work gets a bit wonky. It does look a bit fake, like a model flying between plywoods with painted houses.
Yeah.
But you do tend to forgive old effects that way, because I think it has a bit to do with that you and I know how digital effects works these days. If something looks wonky, we can point out that, okay, it feels like they didn't have time, budget. We know the seams a bit more, while we do respect the craft we didn't train to work with.
I think it's mostly up to the sort of the lenses on the cameras and the frame rate, because I think the models themselves look pretty nice. The Batwing appears, and that's when the Joker, of course, launches the gas. And I do like his speech, now comes the part where we'll relieve you, the little people, of your failed lives, or something like that. Yes.
Yeah, He has some good lines. But I do think that Sam Hamm wrote a more exciting action scene, because when I was reading the script, it was a real page turner.
Yeah.
Like, what happens next? Oh,
yeah.
It's that float where he hands out money from. It's a tank in the script. And we do get a chase between it and the Batwing while the Batwing tries to take the balloons.
Yes.
I don't know if it was cut for budgetary reasons to get a more character-focused ending climax that we do get in the tower later on. But it doesn't feel as exciting as on the written page.
And there's a lot of chaos, and eventually Batman takes a little time to get going. And we should add also in the first draft, Knox essentially invents the bat signal, because he takes, I believe, there's some sort of store that sells Batman props or something. So he places it on one of the lights and projects it onto one of the balloons, and that tells, I think it's he and Vicky who does it, and that tells Batman that the balloons are dangerous and need to focus here. So that's how the bat signal came about in the first draft, but of course in the movie it's very different.
Yeah, they are a lot more involved, both him and Vicky, in that regard, who helped save the day. And Knox even gets to have the heroic sacrifice of the movie.
Yes, that's true. He doesn't survive in the first draft.
Yeah, and Robin once again gets involved, because in both the final film and the first draft, the Batmobile crashes.
Yeah.
And in the final movie, Vicky gets kidnapped and brought up the tower, whilst in the Sam Hamm draft, Robin saves Batman and tries to murder the Joker, but get knocked out and Batman takes care of things.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So what happens is that Batman uses, of course, the Batwing. Turns out he has a giant scissor at the front, which comes through. It's really practical to have. So he flies, he grabs the balloons and takes off. And supposedly, I guess the balloons...
Yeah, they do explode in the Sam Hamm draft. He takes care of and completely destroys the balloon, but here they drift off and kill some seagulls, I guess.
He flies up above the clouds and does the... sort of maybe like an ego moment. He flies up.
Yeah, it's a bit of vanity. I'm gonna borrow Timothy Dalton there for a moment, and goes down again.
Yeah. So now he arms up with the miniguns and missiles, and the Joker sort of steps in front of the float. And again, in the first draft, the tank is hidden in the float. So a big pink tank comes out of the float, and that eventually shoots down the Batwing, which made a little bit more sense. I mean, the Joker must be a Jedi, because that is what the kind of 1 in a million shot that Luke Skywalker does on the Death Star. Oh, there it goes. So Batman opens fire, and I guess, well, that's always been, I guess, one of the criticisms, that Batman does kill people in this movie, which he did, I believe, in the early comics, but then there was a period where he didn't kill people. I guess
they established, I think it's kind of the same time that he introduced Robin, or maybe a bit later, when the Seduction of the Innocence book came out, which criticized the violence and sexual undertones of early comics, that it started to take back the more violent parts of comic books. I think there is somewhere between those lines, because in the early issues he shot people, he hanged people.
Yeah.
He had a kill count, had a body count, for sure. Yeah. And Sam Hamm and Burton and Uslan, the producers, all talked about going back to the earliest route of the comics. So I think that's where it comes from, that he does indeed kill a few henchmen here.
Yeah.
And I do think him killing Joker plays part in a larger character arc throughout the 4 original Batman movies.
So, and also, I mean, this was in the late 80s. I mean, this was in the era of Rambo and Arnold. You sort of expected a scene where the hero would blow away the bad guy. So for me as a kid, it just felt right in line with every other blockbuster, I guess.
80s heroes did have somewhat of an edge of them, even the more family-friendly one, adventurous one. You do have Indiana Jones shooting down Nazis and Fuggies in the 80s. I mean, and those were PG movies.
Yeah, as you said, the Joker, it brings out a really large gun. I don't know how he managed to walk around with that thing sticking down his pant leg, but he pulls it out and he shoots, and managed to bring down the Batwing, which is always another thing that sort of bugged me with some of these, the first 4 Batman movies, that you introduce this really nice new vehicle and it gets instantly destroyed. Like in like the Bat boat in Batman Returns, you have another boat and another Batwing in Batman Forever.
Yeah, which also makes it kind of fun because Alfred helps him build these things, so you kind of expect to have the Q scene so long. Bruce, please keep it in one piece.
So the Batwing crashes, and we have some more model shots. I do think still that they look really nice. I mean, I would rather see like a wonky model shot than a wonky CGI shot, because when you look at the models, you see the texture, you see all the work that's been gone in. I think when it crashes, what gives it away a little bit is the flames, because you have wrecked cars that are burning, and it's very hard to, like with water, you can't really scale water or fire. So you always, when you shoot in water, you have to build these really big models. And the same goes for fire, but you can see those little toy cars that it sort of looks like a couple of burning matches inside the cars. So that gives it away a little bit.
Yeah, but you have to remember that Batman was kind of a risk, so I think they had to cut down on spending on a few places. You do see more production value going forward with Batman Returns, Batman Forever, and so on. So I think it's just they saved the big bucks for some of the more elaborate things.
Yeah, so Batman is he's somewhere in the wreckage, and Vicky runs over, and the Joker kidnaps her. And this is a weird one, because if you look at the behind the scenes material, there is this talk about the producers went to see the Phantom of the Opera during the production and came back and said, we have to have more of this. But even in the first draft in '86, the movie ended in the cathedral. So I'm not sure exactly who's telling the truth or exactly in what order things happen, but the final battle was always in the cathedral. So
I think the whole love triangle between I call it love triangle, is the Joker interfering in the relationship of Batman and Vicky. But from what I recall from the Phantom of the Opera, the Phantom tries to manipulate and have the female lead fall in love with him while she's being courted by another man. So I think that's probably what plays into the whole idea of bringing Phantom of the Opera and having Vicky in the tower.
Yeah. And also, they go around the stairs, but you find out later that Batman's grappling hook was still working. So one would think that would have been easier for him to maybe use that.
Yeah, he probably would. I think his shoulder is sore after the crash. So, but save it. Not. I'm just spitballing, but I think it's more him being hurt and tired.
So they reach the top of the cathedral, and the Joker uses his acid to burn through. So one of the bells crashes down and blocking the Gotham PD. So once more they're on the sidelines, and
what I love is that Gordon walks out, tries to rock the bell, stuck. Like, that thing has to weigh quite a lot, and he just expects to push it by himself.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it was worth a try. Yeah. So now we have a couple of fight scenes, and we should mention that Bob the Goon is dead, by the way. The Joker, of course, killed him. And the reason I say that, I mean, it's kind of a funny scene when the Joker shoots Bob, but I think maybe we could have used Bob in the final battles, because there's 3 henchmen that show up we haven't really seen before.
They were there from the beginning.
They were just hanging out there in case of an emergency. But there's like one guy that's not he does flips. The other guy, I think, is the one that holds the stereo in the museum. But then we have this other henchman that really gives Batman a run for his money, and maybe that should have been Bob instead. I don't know.
I got a funny scene in my head. Like, those 3 are up there to escape the gas because they want to rendezvous, and they go, 1 for you, 1 for you. Oh, we're missing 3. Oh. Crap. And And then it's like, oh, let's hide in the tower. No gas will get here.
That could be one reason. So, what's going on with Vicky? Are they playing it as she's sort of almost fainting? Because she's really like loose in her body and almost asleep.
She's kind of groggy. Like she's given up and just, to hell with it. Do what you want. Yeah, she doesn't get into action until she notices that Bruce is lurking about in the shadows.
We have a little bit of a fist fight, and should this, you think, have been a more epic fight? Should it been more even? Should the Joker have put up more of a fight? Because now he's sort of just punched around a bit.
Yeah, I think Sam Hamm's script, where they're more the same age, is more suitable for the old fighting. Now it's a man in his late 30s kicking the ass of a man in his early 50s. Sure, you can be fit and strong in your early 50s, but Jack Nicholson's Joker is a bit of a dad bod, so it's not really an even fight for him.
Yeah.
But then again, I think it's more satisfying for us to finally see Batman kick his ass after everything that's happened throughout the movie.
I agree, actually, because it's sort of been built up in the audience, I think, so we kind of like when he gets punched in the face. But eventually, of course, Batman says to him, you killed my parents, and the Joker at first doesn't know what he's talking about. But then just a little later, the Joker says, I was only a kid when I killed your parents. And I've always wondered, how does the Joker know who Bruce or Batman is referring to?
I kind of think it comes from the fact that his reveal that he defeated henchmen is that he just throws back the line to the Joker in his regular voice. Tell me, have you ever danced with the devil in a pale moonlight? So he might recognize Bruce Wayne's voice from that. But as you say, he kind of pivots from, I don't know what you're talking about, to, oh, I was just a kid. So I don't know if it doesn't, come forward in the dialogue that, Oh, I get it now. You're Bruce Wayne.
Yes, because we talked about this earlier in the Sam Hamm script. Batman has his mask taken off.
Yeah, and then that's when the Joker recognizes that it's the rich boy.
Yes.
What the hell are you doing here? But then they don't have that connection of the murder and all that in the Sam Hamm script, because that is just Joe Chill. Not named, but if you read the comics, you know that the murder of Batman's parents is a low-grade thug named Joe Chill.
Yeah. The Joker is punched off the ledge, but eventually he pulls down Batman and Vicky, so I guess technically he does win the fight, but in a more sneaky way.
Yeah, it's kind of fitting for his character to play dirty.
The interesting thing here is in the Sam Hamm screenplay, it sort of ends about the same, but Vicky is not there. But what happens in the screenplay is that bats appear, a whole swarm of bats. The Joker hangs on, the helicopter arrives, the Joker grabs the ladder, but then a whole swarm of bats ascend from the darkness of the tower. It's never made clear, unless I missed something in the screenplay, where the bats, if the Batman calls them somehow, because they sort of just appear, sort of avenge the city, I guess.
Yeah, what he does is a kind of a desperate move in the script, Batman, because he is beaten by the crash, by tumbling up the stairs, and he starts something on his utility belt with a countdown, so Joker assumes it's a bomb, and I think it's a bomb because he throws it at the helicopter and something happens that makes a helicopter explode or crash.
Yeah.
And the description is that the Joker, kind of still conscious, having fallen down, witnesses the helicopter explode and sort of accepts death because it's a little bit of destruction before it goes.
So in the movie, of course, Batman uses one of his grappling hooks and he ties the Joker to the gargoyle. And, well, I guess he technically kills the Joker, although I guess the Joker could have maybe let go and he would have fallen and smacked into the wall, but he still would have been hanging on the gargoyle, I guess.
Yeah, but the gargoyle does let loose, so I probably think that if he's been dangling, it would have killed him anyway.
Yeah, and then we have the Joker. He eventually lets go of the ladder and falls down in an effect that is maybe not 100%. when he's falling.
Yeah, it's sped up in an awkward way.
Yeah, it's really a strange effect. It looks sort of jerky and whatnot. And then, of course, Batman, they try to get up and they fall again. And then Batman has his grappling gun. It always sort of bugged me how the hook goes up and it attaches to some sort of pillar or something. And they stop right away. I think it should have been more of a slow descent, maybe a couple of meters, because that kind of snap would have killed both of them.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. You know, having watched behind the scenes of For Your Eyes Only, the stuntman Rick Sylvester talks quite a lot about him letting go and falling, that he needed some sort of slow stop to decelerate him so he didn't break anything. So you kind of look at the scene going, oh, that's not good for the back.
No, you're gonna be sore in the morning.
But to go back a little bit of what you said about the Batman technically killing the Joker, how did you feel about it, having grown up with the Adam West series that didn't have that kind of violence and Batman never killed his enemies?
It's a good question. It didn't bother me a whole lot as a kid, because you know, when you grew up in the 80s and you watched all these Rambo movies and Lethal Weapon and Die Hard, so I sort of expected the hero to kill his opponents, and I never sort of made it, because I realized that the TV series was something completely different. So I saw it felt kind of natural to me that he chose to do that, and obviously that was controversial among the fans, but I wasn't sort of a Batman expert, so for me it was, yeah, he's a hero. He kills people.
I was a kid, so I didn't kind of connect the whole no killing part and the whole morality play of that until later. So I just went, oh yeah, I kind of deserve that. All the horrible things he's done, but it kind of developed into a pet peeve of mine when it comes to superhero movies. Having read a bit more comics growing up, watching more shows, that they are very happy in killing their villains. Some of them do grant a return later on, but having died, you can't really get that satisfaction of seeing them again.
Yeah, that's true. And then we see the Joker, of course, laying on the ground. And I still remember back in school, my friends had the collector cards, the Batman collector cards. And those cards were pretty damn spoilerific, because one of the cards showed the Joker lying dead, you know, on the stony ground. So instantly, oh, okay, so that's how it goes. So one knew the ending before whenever I watched the movie.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting how promotional material can spoil things. Like Star Wars Episode 1. It has a spoiler on the soundtrack, because one of the tracks is called Qui-Gon's Noble End. So you kind of know that, Liam Neeson is gonna die.
Yeah, it's interesting now in today's world with all, you know, all the spoiler warnings, even older movies. I always felt that I need to put up a spoiler warning even when I'm discussing films that are 40 years old, because people maybe want to rediscover an old classic. So I do get the gist of it, but but back in the day it was much more lenient. People gave away plot twists left and right.
Yeah, and for a while the trailers always kind of spoiled the end climax. You know, this is where the final bat's gonna happen. You go, yeah, totally.
And then we see, of course, Commissioner Gordon. Again, he pulls one of those laughing bags out of the Joker's inner pocket. And I remember those bags were really popular, actually, in the 80s for whatever reason. All they did was they laughed. It was a bag, and they laughed. That was sort of it.
But it does make a pretty creepy scene, seeing that grin, that death stare, and you're still here.
Yeah. And then
it does that.
Yeah, then we come to, well, one big change from compared to the first draft. There was a press conference outside of City Hall, I believe, and Harvey Dent reads a letter from Batman, and then, of course, Commissioner Gordon turns on the bat signal, but none of that was in the first draft.
Yeah, speaking of Adam West and his old bat guys, what if Batman has bat stationery? There was a little bat logo on the letter.
Yeah, right. So anyhow, they project the signal up onto the sky, and I guess maybe this was a stylistic choice, but it's sort of like, it almost looks like a movie screen up in the sky. The beam just stops, and there you have the bat signal. I think they did a much better effect in the later movies, but this one, it's almost like it's a stylistic choice to have it look like that.
Yeah, it kind of feels like it's projected on a sheet.
Yeah.
It's not really like it's hitting clouds or fog or anything like in the later movies. It's just up there. But then again, if you look back at the, what can I say, 1940 series, one of the early ones, it's daylight and they still had a bat signal up in the sky. So, but what I find interesting is something Sam Hamm pointed out in an interview I saw with him, that he felt that's kind of weird that Batman gives them a signal like, yeah, we're gonna use this. Now he's officially a part of the police force. He is a vigilante throughout this, and he, by not really, maybe not always by choice, do kill some of the henchmen, and this looks like something the police would be frowned upon. But they just accept him now.
So we have the final scene. We have Vicky walking up to Alfred. And, well, he tells her that Mr. Wayne is probably going to be a little late. And it's kind of interesting how Kim Basinger plays this, because she doesn't really look all that happy. She's almost has this somber look on her face, like she knows that this relationship is probably not going to last.
So this hints on the fact that this relationship won't work, and Batman will regress to a darker point in the sequel. And I have to go for another arc in that one. So I think it does work in that way. That gives a nice hint to that arc.
Absolutely. And then the music swells. And it is a really epic ending scene. The camera ascends, you see all the buildings, and we end on Batman at the cathedral looking. And I always thought that this was actually a model shot, the very last shot of the film. But supposedly I think it is a stuntman. I think because the ears sort of look a bit shorter and the cape sort of flaps a little bit differently. So I always thought that this was some sort of visual effect, but apparently it is a real stuntman.
It is kind of an iconic shot that it gets replicated a lot in comic Batman media. You see the signal, you see him.
Yeah, and I think actually it is Michael Keaton's stunt double for Batman that does that final shot, at least from what I've come to understand. And then it sort of ends. We get the Batman March, and then we have another final Prince song.
Yeah, but this in the end credits, and the producers learned a lesson. I don't think Returns has a ballad or needle drop song in it anywhere to sell soundtracks, but Batman Forever and Batman and Robin certainly did, and they kept and waited. Let's put them in the end credits. Kiss from a Rose, end credits.
Yeah, and I noticed also during the end credits that in the title sequence Jack Nicholson's name come up first, and then Michael Keaton. But in the cast, in the end credits, it's actually Michael Keaton as top billing. So I just thought that was kind of interesting that he actually gets to be on top of the list when the movie ends.
Yeah, but I think it rhymes a little bit with the fact that opening credits tend to go by order of what's on the poster. Yeah. And Jack Nicholson wanted to be top billing on the poster.
Yeah.
I think it just comes natural from that. Yeah, we should do it like this. Yeah, Jack first, Michael Keaton, Batman. Yeah.
Yeah. I always sort of almost interpreted it as Batman has ascended the Joker. Now he finally gets top billing because he earned it through the movie. If one want to read in too much into it.
That's a good idea.
So final thoughts. What is your opinion on Batman 89? Is it your favorite, or where does it place in the ranking for you?
Ooh, good question. It does hold up. We have nitpicked it a bit, but as a complete package, it really works. But there are elements that could have been improved on naturally. Especially when we have read the first draft by Sam Hamm from 1986, and you see things that they decided to put away that probably should have been kept. When it comes to ranking, it's definitely of the original four, it's top. It's better than, I like it better than Dark Knight Rises. if you look at an origin story, I think Batman Begins pulled the heavier punches. But I kind of like how Michael Keaton remains a mystery. What is his training? What made him do it? What is his journey there? We'll never get to know that. Probably tie with Batman Begins, Dark Knight over. And the question that remains is how I rank the Batman. The Batman could have been better paced, but a lot of detective work. Oh, good question. I think I'm going to put the Batman, and Batman Begins kind of tied on second place.
Yeah.
No, third place. Batman: The Mask of the Phantasm goes above them.
Oh,
the
interesting.
animated feature from the 90s.
So I was really pumped for this movie when I was a kid, but for whatever reason, I didn't see it in the cinema. I think it could have been a 15 in Sweden. I actually don't remember. It could have been an 11, but for whatever reason, I watched it on VHS, and I was so pumped for this movie. And my first reaction was crushing disappointment, actually. Well, not crushing, but it was like... It was something that I didn't expect, because my go-to superhero movies at the time was the first two Superman movies, particularly the second one, which I really, really loved. And those movies, obviously partly shot in New York, they feel like they were very much of that time period. They felt modern at the time, that like they take place in the real world, even though it has fantastical elements. So when I saw Batman, I was like... I still remember to this day what I said to my parents. I said it was too fairy tale-like. What I meant by that was that just the whole production design, the lighting, the mood and the tone was something I couldn't quite grasp as a kid. It just looked, as I said, like a fairy tale. I think in my head I expected The Dark Knight, which came obviously a lot later. But in my head I sort of expected something that felt more like Superman, like in a real world, and then we have Batman. So, well, now I've sort of come to love the movie, but at the time, I was like, what was that? And I also remember I didn't care for some of the special effects. Even as a kid, I could tell that something was off. There is a scene when the police are aiming the lights at the cathedral, and you know you see the lights going like this on the exterior of the cathedral.
They kind of obviously rotoscoped in more than actually trying to light a little model.
But now I really like the movie, and for me it is probably my favorite one. Close, I guess, with The Dark Knight and Batman Begins. But maybe also I'm nostalgic about it. But for me, it's probably the top one, I would say. I've only seen the Batman once. I felt it was a bit too long and too dark and too moody.
It can be a bit broody. So this movie balances a bit better when it comes to mood and fun.
Yeah, wonderful.
But also, as you pointed out there about you expecting kind of more realistic Batman going from Superman. As I pointed out, I went from the animated series that is heavily inspired by the Tim Burton movies to quite a big extent. You know, the whole mixing of eras, you get computers, but it looks like the 1940s and all that. So it kind of felt natural to me to just watch this movie.
Yeah, I can understand that. Well, this has been a really nice discussion. Do you have something you want to add? Something you didn't get to say as we talk through this?
I think we could maybe try to summarize the journeys the characters go through. Like how Knox begins like the everyman we're supposed to follow, but he just kind of gets thrown to the side.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And there's also something in the Sam Hamm script. He had a lot more to do. And he actually at one point blackmails, because he finds out that Bruce is Batman, and he tries to blackmail Bruce into essentially leave Vicky alone. So he has a lot more to do. Now he's sort of like almost a bystander in the grand scheme of things. He does get a little bit of a heroic moment towards the end when he beats up some of the goons so one of the balloons go up in the sky. But then he's knocked unconscious. In the first screenplay, he dies, but now he's sort of like jumps onto the car, and then he is thrown into a bag of trash cans, into a pile of trash cans, and then he's sort of out for the rest of the evening.
He kind of hands the baton over to Vicky to be our point of view into all these things, but she just turns into a damsel in distress in the end. So she kind of lets go that point of view, and we get to follow Bruce that we don't really know that well.
From what I've understood, there was a lot of changes. Sam Hamm couldn't be there on set to write because I think there was a writer's strike at the time. So Warren Scarron and a couple of other people were doing rewrites. But all in all, I mean, you can still feel the DNA from the first draft of the screenplay. It's very much there. You can really see Sam Hamm's contributions to the whole thing. It's just, in some aspects, some things would have been interesting to see, like the pink tank that comes out of the cake and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that final chase gets expanded upon in the scripts, and kind of a shame that budgetary reasons probably streamline it down to a more simpler thing.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it does get a bit more psychological and emotional and character driven by that extent. So I just think that the Sam Hamm scripts brought a bit of more insight to what the motivations of the characters are. So if you get a chance, anyone out there of your viewers, to read it, do it, because it kind of expands on the ideas that they are presented in the movie. You kind of get the ideas behind them.
Oh yeah, and it's also interesting how some of the elements of the first screenplay sort of was then borrowed or copied onto the subsequent films, like the swarm of bats encircling the villain is something we see in Batman Returns, where the bats they swarm the Penguin.
Yeah, and also the bats the bat scene kind of makes an appearance as well in Batman Begins. It adapts a scene from Batman Year One as well, where he escapes the cops by calling in the bats.
Yeah, absolutely. So interesting.
And one more thing I should probably share, because I've talked a lot about Batman having an arc through the original 4 movies. So to expand on that, you do get him here killing and taking vengeance for his parents' murder by killing the Joker. And as you pointed out, there is that hint in Vicky that this might not work out. Next time we see him, he's sitting alone brooding in his library when the bat signal hits him.
Yeah.
So he has gone back to a dark place because she left, it didn't work, and it didn't bring him peace that the Joker now is dead. Which kind of makes sense to why he's a bit more violent in the second movie.
Yeah.
And then when you get over to the third movie, Batman Forever, he does get introduced to Dick Grayson finally. And he begins to see himself in that drive for vengeance. Dick Grayson wanted to murder Two-Face as revenge, and he kind of mentions him that it won't bring comfort, it won't bring finality, it will just bring regret and darkness. And by the fourth movie, he's ridden of his darkness, he's just out there having fun as Batman. Yeah. Probably a bit too much.
Probably a bit too much fun, yeah.
But there is an arc there.
That's true.
I don't think it's planned, but it's naturally evolved that way.
That's true. No, very much so. You're totally right. He does go through an arc. He goes from dark to very light and very happy when he comes down in the fourth film. Hi, Freeze, I'm Batman. It's not really the same I'm Batman as we see in the first film.
And it's when it's surrounded by a bat family that Alfred finally accepts him being Batman.
Yeah, Alfred has an arc as well. Indeed, he does. Well, this has been great, and we'll see what movie we'll talk about next time. We will put on our thinking caps and see what we can come up with. But
I have a few ideas there where we might go.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thank you so much, and thank you everyone for viewing this. And hope you enjoyed the conversation. And we'll see you again next time.
Please like and subscribe.
Yes, do that. That would be awesome. And ring that bell too, by the way.